In this video I am going to show you how to replace the front wheel bearings on 2005 to 2015 Toyota Tacoma 4-wheel drive trucks. Park the truck on a flat surface, set the emergency brake and place blocks in front and behind the rear wheels for safety. Raise the front of the truck to a suitable height using a hydraulic jack and place jack stands under the chassis for greater safety. Remove the lug nuts holding the wheel using an impact tool and a 21mm socket. Remove the base that holds the ABS sensor cable with a ratchet and a 12mm socket. Remove the two bolts holding the caliper bracket with a ratchet and a 17mm socket. Once the bolts have been removed, hang the brake caliper from the chassis with a hook to prevent it from hanging on the brake line. Remove the brake rotor by pulling it outward with clean hands to avoid contaminating the braking surface. Next, remove the cover shown in the image using a flathead screwdriver or a small pry barb, carefully knocking the screwdriver out without piercing or bending the cover. Remove the locking nut cotter pin using needle nose pliers. Remove the safety cap that covers the nut. Remove the nut holding the drive shaft using an impact tool and a 35mm socket. If you do not have an impact tool, lock the bearing with the help of a bar by placing it between the wheel studs and the other end making contact with the floor as shown in the image. Note: install two lug nuts to prevent damage to the threads of the wheel studs that hold the wheel. Note: in some models, it is necessary to obtain a special socket similar to the one shown in the image. Next, free the axle shaft from the bearing by striking the center of it inwards using a punch and a hammer. Loosen the 4 bolts that hold the bearing using a 17mm wrench. If necessary, hit the wrench with a hammer to loosen the bolts more easily. Once the bolts are loose, tap the defective bearing outward with a hammer to separate it from the steering knuckle, or use a pry bar to separate it. Once free, loosen the bolts all the way and remove the defective bearing completely. Thoroughly clean the surface before installing the new bearing as shown in the image. Lightly lubricate the seal of the new bearing so that it slides in more easily. Install the new bearing by tightening the bolts in a crisscross pattern so that the bearing seats properly. Once the bolts reach the stop, tighten them according to the specs listed in your owner's manual. Proceed to install the remaining components in the reverse order in which they were removed, ensuring that all bolts and nuts are properly tightened. That's how simple it is to replace the front wheel bearings on 2005 to 2015 Toyota Tacoma 4-wheel drive trucks.